Welcome to the House of Maths. We're looking at quadratic equations today. Here's the general form of a quadratic. In particular, I'm looking at completing the square where a is not equal to 1. So here's your a coefficient. It's not going to be 1. I did that in a previous video, so if you're interested in that, check that out. So here's our quadratic that we're going to look at today, and we're going to complete the square on this. Remember, completing the square is going to give you, if I just draw up my coordinate grid, you're going to get a curve, something like that. Completing the square is going to give you a minimum point down here. It'll give the x and y coordinate of this point here. Now, when you look at this quadratic, you might think, ooh, I can divide this all by 2 to make my life a little bit easier. Well, if you're completing the square, you don't want to do that. If you're just solving it, that's okay. But if you're completing the square, it will not give you the right answer if you divide through by 2 first. Now, what will happen? In this case, we would divide by 2. So if the y coordinate of this was, say, minus 30, the fact that you're dividing through by 2 to start with is going to make this come out at minus 15. And that's not going to be the right answer. Minus 30 is what we're looking for. So don't be tempted to simplify that to start with. Leave it as is and complete the square from that point. Okay, so if you've got this coefficient not equal to 1, in this case it's 2, it's a slightly different technique. Let me talk you through this now. So what we want to do to start with is we want to factor out that 2. So I'm going to pull that out, and in brackets I'm going to put that. So if I multiply back out, 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times 4x is 8x. So I've factored out that 2. Now I'm in a position where I can complete the square because I've got this x with, if you like, a 1 in front of it. Now you've got to be careful to start with, because when we halve this, square it and add it to both sides, when we bring it back, it's still going to be influenced by this 2. Because we factored the 2 out here. So we've got to remember that. So what we want to do here is try and remember you want a double set of brackets. Now I'm going to complete the square. So I'm going to halve that, like so. Now I've halved it. If I square it, I'm going to get 4. And I would add that to the other side and then bring it back. Well, I'm going to bring it back like so. Okay, so I've still got my minus 12 here. That's the 4 that I've added to the other side and brought back. But I've brought it back into this bigger set of brackets because it's still, this 2 still has an influence, if you like, over that 4. So now I'm going to multiply out the big brackets. So I'm going to get 2. Now I'm going to do 2 times minus 4, which is minus 8. Okay, now I can just tidy this up. Okay, and this is the completed square form. So remember, it's giving us the minimum point. So we want to take the x value, which makes this bracket 0. So x is going to be minus 2, and y is this term here. Don't forget it's a negative. So minus 20. So this is our minimum point for this curve. Now, if we want to go ahead and solve this, we can solve it from this point here. If I just put this up over here, okay, that's where I'll put 10 and I should have put 20. Okay, so we're from this point here. So we can now solve this. I'm going to take the 20 to the other side first. Okay, Now I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to remove this 2 from here. And obviously 20 divided by 2 is going to be 10. Now I can take square roots of both sides. Don't forget to remember that the square root is going to give us a positive or a negative outcome. Now we can subtract 2 from both sides. And this here is the solution. These are the 2 roots of this equation. Remember, what that's telling you is where it crosses the x-axis. These are the points where that will happen. Okay, so that's how we deal with a quadratic where we've got a not equal to 1. Now this is quite a nice example because the numbers were easy to deal with. There were no fractions. Okay, so let's have a look at one where we've got a fraction involved. It's the same technique, but it's just a little bit tougher. Okay, so let's try this one. Okay, so there's our next quadratic. We've got a 3 here. So we're going to factor out the 3. So we're going to pull 3 out, and then we're going to have x squared plus, so this is going to be 10 over 3x minus 13 equals 0. And now we can go through the same process we went through before with the last one, and we're going to halve this, square it, and add it to both sides. So remember, we start with a big bracket, and then we're going to complete the square here. So we've got x plus, now we want half this, so that's 10 over 6 squared minus, so we've halved it, we square it, add it to the other side, and then bring it back. So we need this squared coming back. So 10 squared is 100, 6 squared, 36. So we're going to have to bring that fraction back from the other side. And then we've still got the minus 13, and that equals 0. So we just need to multiply this out. So we're going to get 3. Now I can see that we can simplify that, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to multiply this by 3. Remember, just 3 times 100, you're not going to do 3 times 36 as well, otherwise you'd just be upscaling the fraction. So 3 times 100, so 300 over 36 minus 13 equals 0. Okay, now we just need to tidy this up. So if you've got a calculator and it's on the calculator paper, you could just go ahead and do that quite quickly. But let's assume it's on the non-calculator paper. We can just, first of all I would do, the easiest way to do this is just to start simplifying it down. So I'm just going to divide by 3 to start with. So that'll give me 100 over 12. Then I'm going to, I can see that we can halve that again. So 50 over 6, can halve it again. 25 over 3. Okay, now that's easier to deal with. Now this one here, I'm going to write that one with a denominator of 3, so I can do the subtraction easily. So if I just multiply that up by 3, I'm going to get 39 over 3. And that's enabled me to have the denominators both the same. So I can do 25 or minus 25, take minus 39, so take 39, that's going to give us minus 64 over 3, put that equal to 0, and then I can just put this in here. So that is the completed square form. And it's okay to leave it as a fraction, nothing wrong with that. Then again, you can go ahead and solve that if you want to. if that's what the question requires. As I did in the previous example, just use that same method. But this is the completed square form here. So we know that the minimum point, we know that x is going to be minus 5 over 3, and y is this one here, minus 64 over 3. So that gives us the minimum point for this quadratic. Okay, so that's how you complete the square on quadratics where the a coefficient is not equal to 1. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, hit the like button and think about subscribing.